Welcome to the Jax and Geo show. This is part 2 of this episode. What are we doing in this episode, Jax?
We're going to town on we're seriously going to town on our media segment, usually just the last 20-25 minutes of the show. We're expanding it for a big full show, just about the kind of media that any kind of media that we love, movies, TVs, books, music, all that jazz. I went to town in the first 25-ish or so minutes about the Indiana Jones series, and now it's your turn, Gio. What do you have for us?
Well, Jackson, I have a bit of an interesting one, and I'm not sure if I will have the strength to milk this out for a 20-minute segment, but I'm going to be talking about a singular movie which was originally planned for release in 2004, but was shelved by its distribution company and was actually released as a direct-to-DVD movie around 2008. It is a film called The Onion Movie.
Really? What is it? What is that all about?
So, before I was gonna... It's a little confusing to explain. So, the original film itself is just this kind of satirical kind of series of vignettes, kind of, might I add, funny, excellent vignettes, very offensive, I might say. Mm-hmm. They kind of, the entire film, I feel, plays upon kind of like the trope of being as offensive as possible, which ends up being pretty funny. The film is basically a series of vignettes almost stitched together, and it makes this grand storyline, which we'll discuss later. The film takes its name from The Onion, as in the Onion website, which is the satirical news site. The movie itself uses similar humor that you'd see in their headlines, but more as like almost a visual thing. What makes this film interesting is how it was originally produced. I believe this was originally being made around 2002, 2003. And they were planning to have this released as like a full theatrical movie around 2004. I believe filming was completed around 2003. And we know a rough cut exists because a few people were either brought into test screenings, and I guess copies were made for distributors, but this it was apparently really panned. They thought the reviews that it got, and one of the few reviews that it did get prior to its release, was from a review site called Joe Blow Movie Reviews.
Oh, I know the one.
Who reviewed the film, I believe published their review in 2004 basically, and I do have to say I heartily disagree with their review, but he basically said it was one of the worst things that they've ever seen.
Yikes.
How it was just I don't remember the review because I'm like I feel like he walked into the movie expecting something else, but it was basically he was dissing the review, but I don't really know how much we can really prey upon a site that looks like it hasn't been updated graphic wise since 2005 since that original review was written. Anyway, throwing my shade towards them, I think that they were basically scared to release it because not only was a lot of people were kind of like taking a big old dump over the film because of its content, they were also basically scared to release it. And prior to this, I've shown Jackson the clip. I'm not going to give away any spoilers for this movie, but we watched a few clips from this movie. One of them being the Al Qaeda, not Al Qaeda, Al Qaeda terrorist team training video, and the Brendan LaRue clips. But don't look at the clips. I recommend watching the full thing in one sitting. But I can understand why it didn't get released originally, but they released it directly to DVD around 2007 because around 2007 and 2008 there was a big resurgence in parody style films. One of the films, and actually the only reason I know about this film existing is due to a really bad parody film, a movie called Meet the Spartans.
I think I know the one.
Yes.
Parody of like 300 or something,
yes,
probably, eh?
A not so good movie, but I remember seeing that in the previews for the movies, like the trailers on the DVD, and saying, oh, that Onion movie looks pretty good. And then I found it by chance at a rental store called Jumbo Video, which does not exist anymore.
Oh, I know the one.
Yes. And I rented it, and forever my life was changed.
No kidding.
So the film itself revolves around an anchorman named Norm Archer, who is played by Len Carlew, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And he is the lead reporter, head anchor at Onion News. We're introduced to Onion News as this basically number one news source. They're kind of jerking themselves off, if I'm going to be honest. Throughout the film, you just hear people going, "Oh, wow. The Onion, it's America's number one news source," and you see their news coming through, and it's like, "And now Onion News, America's finest news source," kind of stuff like that's happened. He prides himself he prides himself of being the anchorman of this number one news source. There's a bunch of vignettes that play out first, but then it's revealed that this film company has bought out the Onion, and now it's a part of their kind of like media conglomerate. And while his name has slipped my mind right when I need it the most.
Hang on, I'm pulling it up.
Norm Archer. While he's performing the news, he sees that this company called Global Tetrahedron, their mascot, which is Globy, the tetrahedron penguin, waddles onto the screen and basically is promoting this movie and it's promoted throughout the film. It's called Cockpuncher. It's a Steven Seagal movie. And he's basically, there's all these pop-ups during the news that he's seeing, basically saying, "Oh, Cockpuncher the movie coming out." I think I should be allowed to say that in context. Context matters, so that should be allowed. Anyway, Norm Archer is basically having this big conflict about. He is all about integrity for the news, giving the facts to the people, and not having to advertise this movie. And a whole bunch of stuff happens between there. There's all these vignettes, all these funny stories. There's really racist ones, there's really funny ones, and there's really offensive ones. And it's all you can ever ask for in a movie like this. And it's such a weird movie. And it's such, I can only imagine such a gamble for them to have made this movie in 2003 and then just went, "Yeah, we can't release this." Because this movie looks to be, it's not like a tiny film. It looks to be there's so many different things in this. There's like probably 25 or even 30 different like segments.
Really?
And so many times we see people come up and we see people don't come again. There's so much stuff that happens in this movie that makes me question that there has to be more to this film just getting not released because of one bad film review from a Joe Blow. Literally some blow on the internet giving a bad review, stopping this huge movie from being released.
There must have been like some like rights issues or something, some super kind of, I don't know if technical is the right word for it. But
there has, because the thing is, the film, at least the cut that was released is intact. Like, it's not a rough cut. It's like a full finished movie. It really is just one of those things make you think, why did they just like stop? I think it was a thing of just mostly fear, because there's not just the segment, and I'm just saying to Jackson, not just the thing that we showed before, that small terrorist training thing. The movie's end plot all surrounds terrorism and about terrorists. And considering this was being made in 2003 or 2004, which is like 2 years after 9/11, I think they were starting to get scared, because it's like, okay, the critics don't like it. The people in Iran probably won't like it, seeing how we depict their country. But that's the only thing I can think of. But this movie it has been released as a finished cut. It's a full movie. It's not like a rough cut that got leaked from the studio. And I really have to say, as bad as those parody films are, like Meet the Spartans and Epic Movie and stuff like that, I have to say I'm happy that they got it to be pushed to be released, because it's such a weird movie, but such a fantastic movie. There's so many one-liners that are stuck in my head that I come to say and nobody else gets, because nobody else has seen this movie. There's so many people that I've shown the movie to and they've been absolutely weirded out. There's so many funny things that have happened in this movie, and I just absolutely love it. It's like a top 10 movie easily for me. It's like, I would compare the comedy level to another top 10 film, and I think Jackson it's hopefully in his top 10. But Borat, I would say I'd put it on that level as well. But it is.
Oh yeah.
It is such a fantastic movie, and it's such a weird movie, and it's not for the faint-hearted. It's a very vulgar movie. It's, again, a very racist movie, and it makes me think that I feel like with this movie, they intentionally tried to pull as many stops as they could.
Sure.
There's disgusting jokes. There's funny jokes. There's literally, I can't even go into it, but there's so much stuff in this movie, and it's just, it's like somebody took all these different ideas, shoved them in a washing machine, put it on spin cycle for 5 hours, and what they got was this horrible, disgusting lob of stuff that they turned into a fantastic movie. And it's, I love it. I absolutely love it, and I recommend I think it's on iTunes, but get a copy of the movie. I know it's a weird thing. In some territories, they released it not under the Onion movie, but they released it as like, just called it News Movie. Because you know how they had those, like, they had this weird series of film, like Epic Movie, Disaster Movie. I guess they just tried to do it under that label to try to get it some more traction. But you can find it under that title, but it's such I don't like it. I don't like it getting pitted in with those movies because I feel like
it's not your typical parody film.
Yes, it takes on the satire. I don't want to sound like a Rick and Morty fan and go, the satire is advanced, but it really is a different level. And I feel like with those other movies, they kind of take low blows and they're kind of like, this is something that's popular.
Yeah.
Look at this popular thing doing something
making a parody film of 300 in 2008.
Yeah. Like that's what it is with those movies compared to the Onion movie, at least, because it's kind of like just taking something topical and just making fun of it. Because with all of those movies, apparently, and I'm not sure if this is fact or fiction or not, but all of those like movies, they would watch the trailer for the movie, see what it was about, and see, okay, we'll release it at the same time so it's topical, because they can't wait for the movie to come out and then release theirs like a year after.
No,
they'd watch a ton of trailers, take things that they thought were funny and they could make fun of, and then just shove it in and like have no significance. Like and it just shows how lazy they are.
I watched the film Vampires Suck when I was, I think, maybe 11 years old, maybe 12 years old. And now, as an 11-year-old, 12-year-old, yeah, it was friggin' hilarious.
Exactly.
But if I were to, I haven't watched it since then. So maybe nowadays I'd be like, what on earth is this?
Because as I was saying, I originally found this movie through Meet the Spartans, which is an awful movie. But as a kid, I saw all those movies together. I remember, and I regret wasting money on it. I remember I went to HMV before they closed, and I remember I bought each of those movies. I didn't actually get Meet the Spartans. I got that one at CD Warehouse when they were closed. So that was I only paid $3 for it. So I mean, no big deal. I paid, I think, $7.99 for Epic Movie. And I think I purchased that much for another one of those really bad parody movies. I forget which one it was. But those, as a kid, they're funny for a young audience. And I think that those movies were like, they're literally humor for 12, 13 immature-year-olds. But then once you watch it and you actually see stuff like, oh, that's funny. It's like you watch this and it's like,
You know what I would still get a kick out of, I think, is one bit in Vampires Suck, where the person who's supposed to be Taylor Lautner's character, he just takes his shirt off out of nowhere, and the person who's supposed to be Kristen Stewart's character is like, why'd you just take your shirt off? And he's like, my contract says I have to take my shirt off after every 10 minutes of screen time. That I get a good chuckle out of that every now and again.
You know, they have some, I will agree with you, they have some good one-liners once in a while.
Yeah, they have their moments.
But, you know, they haven't, excuse the sound of that mic. The excruciating pain that it feels. But I think that they're just like, I think they would have worked better as like a sketch on a TV show rather than a full-length movie, because just knowing that fact that they just watched a ton of trailers and just like, yeah, that's topical. That's topical. That's topical. That's topical. Okay, we'll make I don't know, Willy Wonka. Okay, he has chocolate factory. Oh, there's a river of chocolate. Okay, let's make one of the characters eat that. And he's like, oh, it tastes so good. And it's like, oh, that's actually a sewage plant. That's why it's brown. And that's the whole scene. And then Willy Wonka is Oompa Loompas try to beat him up. It's a beautiful movie.
It's like an SNL skit almost.
Yeah.
Like an hour and a half of that.
Exactly. And it's like most of the humor and why I think it appeals to the audience of young children. It's like, oh, there's a woman with big boobs. There's a woman with big boobs. Oh, wow. Look, she's like, that's literally. And I think they know.
You're pretty spot on. Yeah.
I think the writers know that's the audience that they're aiming for when they're not trying to get the top tier movie critics to see this and go, that was some top tier humor. They're trying to get the horny teenagers in, let's be honest.
Yeah.
And looks like we've tallied up our hours here.
I think so.
And I think we'll end it off on that. What a wholesome note to end it off.
That was a very nice way to end it. I'm glad we ended it with yours.
Yeah, I'm glad we started it off with Indiana Jones.
Well, we appear to be at an understanding.
Well, I think this was one of our, if I'm going to quote one of the food reviewers from the iDubbbz Food Reviewer Content Cop, I will give this podcast a best ever.
Best ever, that's right.
And
we're going to open up the next show saying, your boy, what it do? Your boy's back at it again with a new food review.
Snack Dubs here with another legit food review. And I think it's time for us to legitimately end the show off.
We should do another one of these big media ones again.
We should.
This was cool.
I have been Gio.
I have been Jax.
And you have been listening to Jax and Gio, the show.
We have Twitter. Follow us on Twitter at JaxGeo.
Thank you for I was about to end it off without plugging the promo.
And we have a website
We have a website. The domain, we're not going to say the domain now because it's a little screwed up.
You can find it on Twitter, though.
You can find it on the Twitter, and we've got some beautiful galleries of what you can find on the website there as well. So, on behalf of Jax.
And on behalf of Geo.
Thank you for listening. We will be back for another episode very soon.
Take care.
See ya.